Olafin de Lawrence. Played through for Fuller. Fuller's beaten Larson here. And Ricardo Fuller has scored for Stoke. 10 minutes to go. And it could yet be a celebratory night in the Potteries.
Hello, welcome to episode 3 of the Wizards of Drivel podcast. The season may be over for Stoke City, but we've still got plenty to discuss. As always, I'm joined by Chris Brammer.
Hello.
And Jason Martin.
Hello.
Now, the first thing I want to talk about in episode 3 are transfers. The season's over, we've got no games to discuss, and so, as always happens during the summer months with Stoke City, it's all about who's going in, who's going out, and the main chat as far as Stoke are concerned has been about Marko Arnautovic. Jason, do you think Arnie will go?
I'm really not sure. I think it should be a lot more clear cut, but the uncertainty around it makes me think it could go either way. I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that it will, and I'm trying to plan ahead for new arrivals and things like that. But if he stays on, that's a bonus. Like, he's had a terrific season here. Like we've said it in the last couple of podcasts as well. 11 goals this season, 6 assists in the league. That improves remarkably on last season's 1 goal and 5 assists. And 4 goals and 7 assists in his first season, which is quite interesting. It seems like he's sort of shifted from being the team player to just the match winner, which is quite cool. Shot accuracy's improved a lot. Overall, I think we've just sort of turned him into a much better player. He's had a lot more games this season compared to the last few, and I think it's done him a world of good. And you can see why other teams have wanted him. I can't believe there isn't a lot more domestic clamour for him, to be honest. I can't see a side in the league that wouldn't be strengthened with having him in the side. And this talk of him just going to rot on a bench somewhere is quite absurd, because we know his ability on the pitch. Like, we know he could do that, turn it on against any side in the world. So to say that he's just going to sit on a bench somewhere is quite mad. I think the Euros will be a massive factor, as expected. I mean, it's a massive shop window for clubs. So the premiums are quite high, which we won't benefit from thanks to this 12 million release clause. So there's not even a massive financial benefit there. But I don't think his performances will persuade him to leave. I think it will just persuade others to sort of give him that opportunity. And also, you've got to remember the transfer merry-go-rounds that will begin. So say a player at a Europa League club does well at the Euros and is snapped up by a Champions League club. Suddenly there's a domino effect. And that Europa League side has money and the European attraction. That may still be considered a step up for Arnautovic from Stoke, so that might bring him in. So there's loads of permutations for it. But overall, I just hope he does really well at Euros regardless, because he's fully deserved it. I just can't wait to see him there.
Yeah. Chris, there has been a certain degree of antipathy towards Marko Arnautovic from what I'd call a vocal minority of Stoke fans, who perhaps accusing him of being greedy, wanting away. A lot of this seems to revolve around the suggestion that he shouldn't be our highest paid player, which it sounds like he wants to be. Is Marko Arnautovic greedy, or is he just too good for us?
I feel that every time a player comes along and does ask for a bigger contract or something like that, there's always a tendency with, I'm sure it's all football fans, to come along and think, oh, well, he clearly doesn't want to play for our club. If he doesn't want to be with us, then get him out the door. He deserves to go. And I think we have to consider that, whilst footballers are very well paid, there is a huge, I don't know what the word is, disparity maybe between what we pay and what maybe some of the top clubs pay. I don't know, what's our highest wage bill, highest player paid at the moment? I
believe it might be, the figure touted around that I've seen that he wants is £80,000. That might be Shaqiri.
Okay. So a few months back, I got into a bit of a Twitter debate with, I think it was Kyle Norbury, over whether Arnie deserves to have a contract. Now, we were arguing over the figure of 100k a week. At that point in time, I was completely against paying him that amount of money. I felt that as a club, we needed to keep to a strict wage structure. I felt at that time anyway, if Arnie got 100k a week, what was to stop the likes of Shawcross? They equally would be as deserving of a new contract if Arnie was being paid that much. What's changed for me now over the last few months is that I feel Arnie has been so instrumental in our season. We're not a team that's filled with goal scorers. So for him to be the kind of one-man band, as it were, to really drag our teams to some performances over this season, I kind of feel that he's deserving of being paid a bit more. I also think that with the new TV deals that are coming in, with the money that's going to be in the Premier League over the next few seasons, as a club we're going to have to start raising our wages if we want to compete in Europe, as Coates and Hughes and that have said that that's their ambition. 100k a week, 80k a week, I don't know if there's that much difference in terms of money in the Premier League nowadays. I would raise more questions over whether he deserves to be the highest paid player at the club. I think he deserves to be paid a lot, but I think that if he's paid a lot, then a lot of other players in the team also deserve to be paid a similar wage. I don't know how you can justify not paying maybe Ryan Shawcross the same amount when he's the captain and he's been there for so long and he's so instrumental in that defence. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Do you think, do you honestly think, like, as a genuine question, because it's something that's always sort of touted around as maybe a realistic or pessimistic approach, that there will be this uproar whenever someone gets the highest paid contract, that others will be knocking the door down and saying, look, why is he getting that much? I want it now, or there'll be a riot and stuff. Because players get new deals all the time. Presumably with the bonuses and stuff in play, you think there's an element of they just get on with it. There wouldn't necessarily always be a financial disparity causing problems. And you have to think, like, in the media, I doubt that the figures will always be right. Because I don't think the club would want to sort of, same with any business, you wouldn't always want to put your salaries and stuff out there for the sake of keeping your staff happy, basically.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I'm also a bit reluctant to say with Arnie that it's all about money. If he's negotiating a new deal with us, of course money's a huge factor. But he's also thinking, in the back of his mind, are there Champions League clubs who want to come in for me? Are there teams who might be challenging for league titles who want to come in for me? And one thing I think is definitely true about Marko Arnautovic is he's a very ambitious player. I mean, look at the managers he's played under and the clubs he's played for. I think he clearly wants to win things. He clearly sees himself as someone who can, really impress, at a European level. So I imagine if he wants to stay, I think he considers himself good enough to be our highest paid player. But if he wants to go, I don't think it's just about us not being able to afford an extra, 20,000 a week or whatever it is.
I think the other thing that we've got to also consider then on the flip side of it is that if Arnie is to go and because we don't pay him that wage, any player who we want to come in who will either improve us or be of that same quality as he is at the moment will want a sizable wage. So we're not going to attract someone of the same quality as Arnautovic, but for 50% less wages, are we?
Well, that leads me on to at Nola Stokey's question about if we can replace Marko Arnautovic. I did mention it on the last show, and I think you, Chris, suggested Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I think Man United may have just picked us to that one. I mean, pull your finger out, Tony Scholes. What are you doing letting Zlatan go to Man United? But seriously, as a long-term or even short-term replacement on the left wing, who is there, really?
Memphis Depay. Simple. I'm not, honestly, I'm being 100% serious here. He'd be perfect for it. He's young, so he'd be building for long term. He's got the ability, the pace, the eye for the goal, and he's got the absolute arrogance to do it. And
he has also assisted a goal at the Britannia Stadium this season. The way he played through Johnson for that was just perfect. Memphis Depay. It's certainly a star name.
It's a bold move, though, that I can't see him... And I know he's not had maybe the best of seasons at United, but I can't see them cutting their losses with him.
Admittedly, I think Mourinho was going to turn him into an absolute monster this season. I think he's sort of going to be his Hazard project. But if there's any slight inkling that we could get him, I think we should be on that, because he'd be the perfect replacement. But then you get on to the whole issue of replacements of, do you want to replace him with an exact like-for-like player, or do you start looking at maybe modifying the role slightly, maybe obviously we're going towards, it feels like we're pulling towards 4-3-3 towards the back end of the season with Afellay and Bula and everything else, rather than 4-2-3-1. Are we just going to go for sort of more forward-thinking strikers on wings, or is it going to be actual wingers? Like, we don't know. You've also got do we get someone in who can make an impact now? Do we get, as Chris said, you're not going to be likely to get someone of Arnautovic's ability in for half the price. That is, unless you take the approach that we did with Arnautovic, was find a rough gem and go in, give him patience, get him in, sort of develop him in-house, and then turn him into this player that we're desperately trying to keep hold of this summer. That could be another approach.
I don't think our fans would have the patience for a player who's a rough gem. If we sold Arnie this summer, which I do feel he will probably go, I think that there'll be such a clamour for a like-for-like replacement for us to push on up the table, especially with, granted we beat West Ham on the last day, but there was a general feeling of disappointment over these last few months where it was felt like we could have pushed on and we just fell a bit short. I think that if we don't go for a big star name to replace him, or someone who has that excitement factor, that we might. I don't know. I think our fans will then imagine a youngster, a young lad or whatever comes in who's a rough diamond. They don't get it right in that first season. We're vicious anyway to players who don't perform overly well, but that player coming in and replacing Arnautovic is going to get such stick unless they are a top quality player.
Yeah, I mean, particularly considering the amount of stick Arnautovic gets anyway. Where in probably his best season for Stoke, when he's carried the team in a lot of occasions, player of the year and all this. The amount of grief he gets at the Britannia Stadium sometimes is quite shocking. So.
But that's it, isn't it? That's the interesting point. We talk about who would replace Arnie, who would be a like-for-like replacement. Do fans even want a like-for-like replacement? Do they want another him? Do they cope with another one of him? Or do they just want a winger who's going to get assists and goals? Like, that's something that people have to think about, like, if they can handle it.
I think there's definitely still a case of pining maybe a bit for Matthew Etherington, the more traditional kind of winger. Etherington, of course, was fantastic for us. But he's a very different kind of winger to Arnautovic. You wouldn't catch Matthew Etherington, holding off two defenders and darting inside. He was very much a byline, cross it in kind of player. So maybe fans want to see a bit more of that.
Yeah, I think, and that's maybe what they're sort of trying to look towards with some of the domestic links now. Even though, like, some people epitomise Townsend as a chalk on the boots winger, but his whole game is cutting inside and shooting anyway. So I don't know. I don't think people know what they want from an Arnautovic replacement yet.
Okay, before we move on to players who might come into Stoke, Chris, it's become something of a trend that we seem to be selling our better players towards the between seasons. Of course, Nzonzi and Begovic, when last season I don't think there was much we could do to stop those two players leaving. And if Arnautovic goes this time, it's another season where we have to kind of recover a bit from selling one of our best players. Does it worry you that we're following a kind of Southampton model in a way of selling our better players and then having to recover?
It doesn't so much worry me that we have to sell these players. I feel that in football in general, there's a kind of food chain effect where only really the few top clubs in the world can turn down any offer that comes their way. For a club like us, whilst we're making money now and we've come a long way from being in debt and all that type of stuff, we still have this mission of being self-sufficient and financially responsible. And when an offer comes along for players, I think that we'd be foolish to turn it down, especially when I think, well, let me put it to you this way. With the TV money as it is now, I think a lot more clubs like ours can afford to pay players more. They can afford to hold on to players for a little bit longer. But I think that a club like ours is seen as a stepping stone. And I think we market ourselves to players as a stepping stone for players like Marko Arnautovic, Steven Nzonzi, even Begovic. We say, look, put yourself in the window here, play here for a few seasons, and we will let you go to a bigger club. The one thing that worries me about the players that we've mentioned, Nzonzi, Begovic, and Arnie, if he goes, is that they've gone in the last year of their contract and they've gone for a small fee. The difference with, say, a Southampton model is that, when they sold half their players to Liverpool a few seasons back, they made some serious cash. How much did we sell Nzonzi for last year? It wasn't...
7 million, was it?
Yeah.
7 or 8?
So whilst that's a nice steady profit on what we bought him from Blackburn, it's still... It's nowhere near the figure we would have liked to have seen him gone for. As I say, I think clubs like us, we have to be able to look to build a system where we replace these players over the long term. We have to think that our key players are going to want to move on until a stage where we either reach new heights or, they turn rubbish or something. But what we've got to do as a club is we've got to be able to identify players early on who can come in as a replacement. Whether you feel like we do that properly is a matter for another day. But the model itself doesn't worry me. The price that players go for at the moment does.
I agree.
Speaking of those replacements, Jason, it's always more fun to talk about players who are coming in rather than players who are going. So in what areas do you think we need to sign players the most? What's the most urgent position that we should be looking at?
I mean, there's two questions here. There's where to strengthen initially and where depth is needed. I think if you take a look at the starting 11, probably the centre-half position is one of immense uncertainty at the moment, given the Shawcross's injuries, Munies's injuries, Cameron's had injuries, and basically it's just been a carousel of centre-halves this season, which isn't going to help anyone. I mean, we've discussed it over the last few podcasts, the effect of not having a settled back 4 or 5. So I think a centre-half will probably be worth looking at this summer, but then they've got to make a decision on what the first choice pairing is. Does Walshide now drop to the bench and things like that? Defensive midfielder has obviously been spoken about a lot. I think, as I said before, Whelan will still do a role in the squad, but I believe that there's a position alongside Mbula that needs to be taken up by someone more energetic, maybe with a little bit more movement and a bit more pace, and I think that would be one of my key sort of starting 11 strengtheners. And then in terms of depth, you'll probably be looking at a third winger. That's if Arnie stays or goes. Regardless, we need to start planning that, irrespective of when he stays or goes. If he goes, then we need 2 wingers. It's as simple as that. Well, we can't leave ourselves short in the attacking areas. If we finished this window with a centre half, a defensive mid, and a winger, that would be a good window for me. I'd take that right now.
Of course, the rumour mill is probably just getting started. I wouldn't quite describe it as in full swing yet, but we've had a number of players being linked to it. Chris, the names of Nathan Redmond, Saido Berahino, Michael Carrick, Axel Witsel have all been linked. Which of those kind of catch your eyes? Really exciting.
Well, the rumour of Axel Witsel this week caught a lot of our excitement just because he's a name that's been around for a few years now, and he's been linked with some of the top clubs in Europe. Whether we would get him is another question. I know that there was a lot of rumours going around on Twitter and that we'd officially made a bid for him. Again, I'm not in the know, so I can't tell you whether any of that is true.
Some suggestion he's following a well-known and prominent Stoke fan on Twitter as well. I don't know how that got started, guys, but silly season in transfers. It
must be true then. I think we're probably instead of Axel Witsel, we are probably more likely to end up with Michael Carrick, which would be such a typical Mark Hughes signing. If these last few seasons are anything to go by.
Now, I like Michael Carrick. I think he's a really intelligent footballer, and you don't get that many of them. I've heard him speak to Graham Hunter on his podcast, and he comes across as such a intelligent footballer who properly thinks on the pitch about what he's going to do. And you can tell that by the way he plays. He's a very classy player. When Michael Carrick was first linked, I had a few discussions with people on Twitter who were like, no, he's too old. And I completely understand that point of view. But I think the key indicator for me is speaking to Man United fans who are saying, I'd have him for another year, And he's not as exciting as the Belgian international young player with a nice haircut. But I think he'd really add a lot to us.
Just thinking about it when you said that he's a really, really intelligent player. I think whilst he would be very anticlimactic, I think that if Stoke as a club are planning, and we want to bring through some of those youngsters who are in the academy, Oliver Shentons, what's the lad called who was at Real Madrid? Molina. Yeah, if these young players, if we are truly wanting to bring these players into the first team, I think a player like Michael Carrick coming in and working with them and almost taking them under his wing and them serving as almost Michael Carrick's apprentice would actually
that's just a brilliant idea for a TV show, Michael Carrick's apprentice.
Yeah, but I mean, we all want, everyone seems to want Ollie Shenton in the first team. Give him a year with Michael Carrick, he'll no doubt pick up a few things.
He could be, but like in your Shenton example, I think this is probably the season where what would benefit him most is actually going out and getting some league football rather than necessarily sitting and being mentored sort of in-house for another year. I think there's other players that could benefit, and you could see the logic there where it gives some of the under-21s another year to come through, for example, like your Molinas and everything else, learn from Carrick, use him sparingly and stuff. But we can't get away from the fact that this is a summer where the centre of midfield does need to be addressed and it needs to be forward movement. If you're looking for Carrick, he's very much, people talk about him as another alternative to Whelan, but is Carrick that sort of...
I don't think of Michael Carrick as a Glenn Whelan type player personally. I think Glenn Whelan's more of a kind of scrapper, if you like.
So Carrick could be more of an Afellay, for example, if you think about it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Michael Carrick's very forward thinking in terms of the way he plays. He's always looking for a pass up the pitch, and he can also play just possession football. He's very good at that, just keeping it ticking over in midfield.
Yeah, but where the question then lies, where do you fit him in? Do you then go for this 4-3-3 that we tried when Afellay was in, sort of Mbula advanced and Whelan holding? Because Mbula is pretty much going to be the mainstay of the centre midfield now. We've paid too much money for him not to be, and you're going to need a defensive midfielder alongside him, like how we had with Whelan and Nzonzi in some of our best seasons, the early eras of Hughes and sort of the end of Pulis's eras. So we can't afford, I know he's a good player, but can we afford to make this sort of transfer and leave our starting 11 tactics, I guess, in a stage of uncertainty? Because then it sort of sets ripples about throughout the team. Like, if you've got no number 10, for example, because you're playing through midfield, where does Bojan fit in? Does he fit up front? Does that mean the strikers are benched? And things like that. So I'm a massive advocate of 4-2-3-1 without plugging the website. And so I would rather we get... Like, Carrick's a great player, and he'll do a job for someone, but I don't think it should be us, to be honest.
Okay, looking at the other players that have been linked with us, Nathan Redmond has obviously come up, and also Saido Berahino, two English players. Are they players that get you excited, or are they just kind of okay players for Stoke to sign?
Redmond excites me, but he has done for years. And I think if this is finally the summer that we get him, I'll be delighted, because he's exactly what we need out wide. He's done a job in the Premier League on a couple of occasions now. He's still young, as you say. He's homegrown, which is exactly what Southampton have in their model. And going back to that earlier point, that when they were selling for big money, pretty much all of their sales were English players. Look at Lallana, Klein, Shaw. So it'd be a good route for us to go down. The same with Berahino. But yeah, Redmond can play on either wing, would be level-headed enough to know that he may be on the bench for some games if Arnie and Shaqiri both stay and are both firing, but then can also come in and start games should they, and have the quality to sort of make a difference should the others have a dip in form. I wouldn't necessarily get him in as Arnautovic's replacement in the starting 11, but I definitely have him in those, like a pool of three wingers to sort of rotate and battle each other for those spots.
Okay, we'll leave the first half there. After the break, we've got talk on Stoke summer plans, the Euros, and all your correspondence. Join us after. Hello, welcome back to the second half of the Wizards of Drivel podcast. I was talking to Chris and Jason in the break, and the overwhelming feeling is one of absolute devastation, in that we've just been talking about someone who's left the club recently. I know Arnautovic, at time of recording, hasn't left. We're talking about Dionatan Teixeira, who's joined sister club Orlando City. lads, how are we coping?
I'm in hysterics because I'm so sad about it. If honest, I think Jason must be more upset. You went the full step and had his name on the back of a shirt, didn't you, Jason?
£64 I spent on a shirt with Teixeira on the back. It's my absolute pride and joy, and I've probably worn it more than he has, which is tremendously upsetting.
What possessed you?
Well, it's just a bit boring getting in it. A big name, isn't it? you want to sort of get it in there. Yeah, it's a bit entertaining, isn't it? I just felt like having something different. People laugh at me for getting Teixeira on it, but even as a massive Brek fan, I never had Shea on my back, and they did. So
Bit of a Teixeira quiz for you. Everyone's favourite Brazilian-born Slovakian. Can any of you, from memory, tell me what club we signed him from?
oh my god.
Because I've just printed off a list of all Stoke's transfers under Mark Hughes.
Oh my gosh!
Can none of you remember this team?
It was. I'm assuming it was the team in Slovakia, but I cannot,
Yeah,
for the life of me,
you'd be
tell
right.
you what it is.
I think plastic fan status is assured because none of them said Dukla Banska Bistri. I can't even pronounce it.
Oh yeah,
He's
that team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a step down for him joining us, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think if Arnautovic doesn't join PSG, I think Teixeira should be targeting them once his holiday in Orlando's finished.
Was it one of you guys who shared with me in our group chat the other day that one of you know my love for the Orlando City fans because Americans are so hilarious with football, where one of them had said something like, "Oh, Stoke fan TV say he's actually a really good player."
Yeah.
I think the Bear Pit TV, to give them their due, I think they were actually there for John Chan's stellar performance against Bournemouth, so I'll perhaps give them that.
It is worth mentioning.
Go on.
It is worth mentioning that he will be eligible to face Stoke in pre-season.
Oh my god.
He can't play for them until the 4th of July, I believe, which will make it the Independence Day.
If you didn't think Americans celebrated the 4th of July enough already, the news
Fireworks
is joining their country. What a party that's just going to be.
Has he actually played for Slovakia?
I don't think so. I think he's played for the under-21s.
All right, so he can still actually get US citizenship and play for their national team. That's my thinking.
He could partner Jeff Cameron.
Yeah.
And it could be the Stoke defence that never was.
with Brek Shea at left back.
Yeah. That's also true. But that does lead us on to players who might be leaving Stoke. And is there anyone you think, yeah, he's probably off this summer?
I think Peter Crouch is probably going to be one of them. He's played 11 league games a season, extremely bit part, only a handful of minutes. I think he seems like he just wants to play football. I don't think he's barely got it here this season, so I don't think he's gonna get it here next season. So he can probably move on to, say, maybe a promoted side as an option, sort of as a rotated striker, or maybe just drop down into sort of the top championship sides. Another player I think will do similar is probably going to be Mark Wilson when he recovers from injury. I think he's very much out of the picture at the moment at Stoke. I know his versatility has always been terrific, but I think we've got enough strength and depth in positions now where it's not necessarily needed. Definitely think he can still do a job in the Premier League, maybe looking at the promoted clubs or those in and around the lower mid half of the table. If not, then a promoted club, you could go for him. Or even like the likes of Derby and stuff as a Midlands move, I think he'd do really well for them. So I think there's plenty of options for both Wilson and Crouch. My biggest worry is that Mohamed Diouf's going to go, which has been touted for a while. I think the only thing that sort of keeps me sane about it is he's best friends with Mbula. It's almost his translator at times. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Mbula wouldn't have anyone to talk to if Diouf left. So unless we sign off the French squad, don't bring that up. My heart's going to break again.
I'd love to see Diouf sort of translate 3 lines of sort of hard hitting poetry out of just Mbula saying his own name.
For anyone who's a bit confused about that, we're referring to Gianelli Mbula's Twitter, which if you haven't seen it, it's quite remarkable. Jace, I don't think you could do it justice, but have a go. I mean, it's hard to put into words really why it's so good.
Oh, it makes you your favourite player. It's just so like teaching your nan how to use the internet for the first time and stuff. And you see him play so well on the pitch, but whenever it stops or he does anything remotely human, like hug someone or celebrate things like that, it just looks like he's from another world. It's brilliant. But yeah, it was worth. So I think Juice may well stay, and hopefully his match winner against West Ham will put him in good thoughts. And of course, he's actually scored today for Senegal, which is good. There may be a shock departure, I think. Maybe any from the pool of, say, Muniesa, whose position hasn't looked very certain this season. Jeff Cameron as well, maybe. But he's done a lot with Stoke. Could he step it up? Could he maybe move to the Bundesliga, where American footballers do tend to do really well, and maybe sort of move to a Europa League challenging side for the twilights of his career? Because obviously he's still a massive athlete, so he'll still give it his all and stuff. And the likes of Fabian Johnson do really well over there. And then maybe Hosselu, because he never seems to stay more than a year at any club. So
yeah, he's just a nomad, isn't he?
Yeah, a journeyman already. But yeah, he's not really had many games here, so you couldn't blame him if he wanted to go and try and get games somewhere.
Wasn't Philip Volscheid linked elsewhere this window?
He was, but
I think
he was
that's
linked to
maybe
Gladbach.
wishful thinking on behalf of the sizable portion of Stoke fans who don't like him very much.
He was linked with Borussia Mönchengladbach, but they've put in a €10 million bid to seal, I think, Vestergaard, who's a Danish centre half. So I think that one's probably gone out the window for now. So he's just going to have to go to like Vale or Crewe or something. But yeah, apart from that, I think no one else will go.
Now, looking ahead to the summer, of course, we've got the European Championships coming up, and we've also had a couple of friendlies announced against Burton Albion, against Preston North End. Do you know if we're going to America this year?
We are.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, are we? Yes, we're playing against Orlando, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going to be quite exciting, to be honest. I've been waiting for this since their whole reform and getting big and everything, because it seems like they've managed to build a better stadium with more fans than us overnight, which is quite terrible. But
they filled the corners in, Jason. They filled the corners in.
It's a bowl, isn't it? They've just ignored the corners completely. It's great. We should have done that. Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting to see how it goes. We've been over there obviously a few years ago, and it didn't do us any harm unless you Brek Shea's ankles. Yeah, we're going to go like raise the brand. That's all pre-season, isn't it? For a lot of Premier League sides, I think we've definitely bought into the whole branding exercises.
There's no Barclays Asia Trophy for us this season. I don't know if you watched it last summer. That was quite a bizarre experience. Watching Stoke have a penalty shootout against Everton.
Yeah, it's one of those things you watch on Sky Sports over the summer, isn't it? And go like where it's always Arsenal's and that.
Yeah. And
then you go, oh, hang on, it's us for a change. But yeah, it was just really bizarre. And I think one thing that worries me is between going from Hong Kong to then that tournament in Germany, I think it was last summer with Porto and a lot in there. It just seemed really like a really messy pre-season. And then we had that terrible run at the start of the season. I'm just wondering if maybe they didn't have a chance to gel or find their best 11, because we were going sort of from Wrexham to Hong Kong to Germany. It was just sort of all over the place. So hopefully, when they go to Orlando this season, they're going to hopefully get it right, make it fit in within a decent structure of pre-season, and make sure that they know sort of roughly what the best side is for the start of the season. Hopefully we hit the ground running there. But I'm just happy because the MLS teams love YouTube streams, so we're going to be able to watch it in HD.
Yeah, and they also have excellent commentary. I think when we went, I think it was perhaps the Houston Dynamos we were playing, and the pronunciation of some of Stoke players' names was excellent. Peter Odemwingie, for example.
Oh man, my favourite when we I think it was in the same game against Houston Dynamo actually, where over the tannoy when Shawcross got a yellow card for something, it was a yellow card warning has been given to Stoke City's number 17. Right? Like, it was the best thing ever. But can we all agree though now, when we go to Orlando and Mark Hughes plays a really
I'm not going to Orlando,
No,
Chris.
no, no,
I
no,
can't
no.
afford it.
No. Wait. Okay, fair enough. But when the team goes to Orlando, and Mark Hughes puts out a really hodgepodge team where Charlie Adams playing up front, and we lose 2-0 to Brek Shea's 2 goals, we won't have a meltdown and think that we're all going to get relegated this season. Can we just agree with that won't happen?
I'm promising nothing.
I'm just really happy I get to see Brek and Dion on the pitch, on the same pitch as Stoke players. That's all I've ever wanted.
They didn't even get that much game time against Stoke players when they trained.
Yeah, you get dribbled around like cones.
Now, of course, the second biggest thing to happen this summer, apart from Stoke's tour to America, is the European Championship. A number of Stoke players involved. I think the first of whom is Xherdan Shaqiri playing against Albania on the 11th of June. Are we excited to see our boys in action for various European sides?
I am so worried for Shaqiri. I've got this terrible feeling he's going to falter at the Euros, and it's just going to wrap off a really sort of harsh season for him. And you think that if he doesn't sort of score 5 goals in each game, like the fans back here are hardly going to be any very sympathetic. Yeah, I think that is my worry with Shaqiri, and the fact that we've spoke about for ages like this. Oh, Shaqiri just needs a full pre-season and he'll be absolutely fine. And then you get here and go away, he's not going to get one because obviously they're at the Euros. As Sam said over on 4-2-3-1, like it's still way more of a pre-season than he got last season when he was probably just sitting on a bench or in a corner for months, not knowing who he's going to play for. So it is progress, but I just don't want them coming back exhausted or still injury prone. Hopefully he does well though, but I don't think he's going to be the big star from a Stoke perspective anyway. I'd probably go on Arnautovic. I think it's the dark horse of the Euros, like in total, let alone Austria being the team. I think he's going to be the one who could probably take it to the big stage and then move to West Ham or something.
Oh no, not West Ham.
Well,
right, I'm declaring now, anyone but West Ham. I'd rather he went to Man United than bloody West Ham. That'd just be depressing.
Well, they've got an Olympic Stadium, don't you know?
Oh yeah.
Aside from him, I think the Irish are going to be the valiant underdogs, as will all the other home nations, Wales and England and Northern Ireland. I think you'll expect to see the stereotypical graft that people love, the defensive screen of Whelan, Given saving every shot that comes at him, and then Walters presumably just squirting all the goalkeepers' water bottles away. I hope they get out of the groups, to be honest. I hope Walters grabs 2 or 3 in the group stages and they do
I'm
quite
looking
well.
forward to the game in Bordeaux on the 18th of June, Belgium against Republic of Ireland, because it will be Witsel against Whelan in that midfield battle, and they'll be very much vying for the starting spot in Mark Hughes' side. That could be tasty.
It's such a shame that Mbula's not at the Euros for anyone. I say for anyone because I don't know if it's going to be France or Belgium. But yeah, hopefully, like the next tournament that comes around, we get to see Mbula on the big stage, because we've seen a lot of this is becoming increasingly more common now, which is weird that Stoke players are actually on the international stage, and it's now normality. But there's still a few that I'd love to see sort of play internationally, and I think Mbula is probably one of the main ones at the moment, as was Nzonzi before. I can't believe he's not getting into an international side.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the quality of the French midfielders there are, apart from maybe Moussa Sissoko, that the likes of Mbula and Nzonzi aren't, getting international caps. I think, Nzonzi's declared for France, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Last thing on the Euros, Jack Butland obviously would be going with England were it not for his unfortunate injury in that game against Germany that kind of destroyed our season. Did it destroy our season? Probably not, but I'd like to think it did, so I can blame someone other than Mark Hughes. But how do we think England will get on without Mighty Jack keeping the bench warm?
I think we will get out of the group, and then God knows how far. Probably won't even make it after the first knockout round, if honest. I think we've got quite an exciting attack this time round. We've got some good young players, but I think defensively we're absolutely abysmal. I don't know if any of you watched the friendly against Australia yesterday, but I mean, Australia aren't the greatest team in the world, with all respect to them, and even then, we at times made them look like world beaters. So I think going forward, we look great. Roy Hodgson has to play a diamond for England, but he probably won't. And it's a tournament, anything can happen, but there are plenty of better teams in it than England. So let's just take what we can get.
I think take what we can get should be emblazoned on the England team bus as they drive to various grounds. Shall we have some correspondence?
Yeah.
Yep. That didn't sound too enthusiastic.
Oh, no.
Sure, yes.
Yes, correspondence, our favourite part of the show by far. Okay. Chris, Southwest Stokey asks, what upsets the balance of personalities and egos in the dressing room? Mbula maybe, or Arnie?
Oh,
very controversial question here.
What, as in, is it what between them two?
No, I think he's saying does Mbula or Arnautovic perhaps disrupt the dressing room dynamic?
I don't know. I mean, we seem to have quite at least when Arnie's been around, we seem to have quite a jovial group of players. I don't think it can help Mbula because he doesn't know the language. So I think he probably, if Juve's not there, then he's just sat in the corner like one of those sad wet dogs on an RSPCA advert or something. You know, so
£2 a month.
Yeah,
you
to help
in Bueller English lesson.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. I think Arnie's quite loved by everyone. I think he might have a little bit of a arrogant streak about him, but I think everyone seems to like him, at least from all the videos that come out of Stoke where they're doing.
He seems like a laugh, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah.
You were saying about something you'd said when he joined up with the Austria squad.
yeah. Well, this got posted not that long ago, but there's been people like questioning his endurance. You know, he's had a long season. Is he going to be fit enough for the Euros? And apparently he's turned around and just told them, I will be fine because I am a machine. So I don't know if he's alluding to the fact that he is the Terminator. Who knows?
I think he might well be. Now, Jamie Chatfield has tweeted at 4231 Stoke and asks, which player will be the subject of our shameless Will Griggs on Fire rip-off next year? My money's on Shaqiri.
I think there's three options for us. I think Bojan's on Fire is going to be the main one.
You've thought about this?
Yeah. I've gone through and gone, who fits? I think Bojan's on Fireworks. Telford's on Fireworks, which someone recommended on Twitter. And my personal favourite is Walshide's on Fire. I'm terrified. In which he's going around just repeatedly slapping
Walshide finally scores for us.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Walshide one's going to be my pick.
Walshide's on Fire. Our defence is terrible. No, your defence is terrible.
Oh no, it would be our defence.
Yeah. Chris, Connor at Pez96 asks, realistic aims for next season, and if you could only strengthen one position, what would it be?
I will have to say a realistic aim is a 9th placed finish, and if I could probably only strengthen one area, it's going to have to be defensive midfield. I think if we got our act together, we could be anything from 7th through to 9th, and I think we will achieve a better. No, we will achieve 9th. That's going to happen. It has to happen. It's written in the stars. But I think if we got our act together, we could definitely get higher than that.
It's a bit of a cop-out of an answer. what one thing can you strengthen? Defensive midfield.
That's not a cop-out answer. I actually think we should look at centre-half.
You should just said the team.
Yeah.
Management.
If we could strengthen the team and the management and the stadium and the fans, I think we'll be all right next season.
All right, I'll change my answer. If I could strengthen one position, it would be that corner where the screen is in what will be the Bet365 stadium. I want to fill in that corner.
I think they're already ahead of you on that one.
Excellent, they've read my mind.
Jason, a question from Lucian Finch, who wants to know what level of transfer targets we should be going after in the summer window. Should we be targeting maybe the relegated Premier League players, or should we, maybe try and break the bank on another Shaqiri type figure?
This is a difficult one. I think they'd have to work on a deal by deal basis, to be honest. Like, there's some really good players in the relegated club sides that you could go for and that would strengthen us. But similarly, you could go for a player that's top of his game. So I think we've seen a real mix of us stretching the boundaries from Jordan to Dionatan in the last couple of years, like going from the doldrums of the Slovakian leagues to just nicking a player straight from Inter. So to be honest, I don't know where the boundaries lie. In terms of where I think we'll miss out, I don't think we could pull a domestic player as easily as one from abroad, and particularly if we're not sort of in the European places. So I think if we're going to aim upwards towards Europa League style players, I think we need to look abroad. Whereas if we want to strengthen with Premier League quality players, I think in and around us or lower to relegated sides would be a good option.
Okay. Ben Rowley 56 asks, Chris, Imbula or Nzonzi, short and long term? Ben, you do know Nzonzi has left, and he hasn't. We haven't just sent him out on loan to Sevilla for a season.
I think Imbula for the long term. I think he probably, as good as Nzonzi was, I think Imbula probably has potential to be better. But Nzonzi was like he was one of the best midfielders that I've ever seen in a Stoke shirt. So I'm really happy that he's gone on and won a European trophy. But short term Nzonzi, long term Imbula.
Particularly enjoyable to see Nzonzi beat Liverpool for his, a European victory as well, having dispatched them 6-1 the season before.
They just never learn, do they? It's like a curse for them.
Final question for you, Jason. Tom Thrower at Sussex Stokey wants us to discuss Glovegate. I presume he's talking about Gianelli and Bula here.
What a man. Like, to just wear gloves in May. Oh, it's hilarious. I think he's the only one that when they've gone, look, it is a cold, wet and windy night at the Britannia. And he's gone, yeah, okay. And then he's got, oh God, it is. And he's just never adjusted. I think once you've come from like the sunny Porto to Stoke, it's just, I can't blame him, but I've never seen anything like it. And I can't wait to see what his winter range is going to be, to be honest.
I like to think that it's all part of this persona that he's made, like on Twitter as well. Like I think he in his head he's like a Vic Reeves character, and he's like, so his Twitter is really surreal, and he wears gloves all the time. What's he gonna do next? He'll do something crazy. Like that's.
Maybe. I think people were moaning in the same way they do with Walshide, where they're like, oh God, it doesn't make him look tough and stuff. I think it works brilliantly. But can you imagine going up to Imbula in gloves and going, oh, I can take you on, and then him just bounce you? I think it's...
I think Imbula's trying to freak the opposition out more than anything. Who's this guy? He's wearing gloves in May. His Twitter account is just him saying his own name over and over again.
What's his flaming cheetah?
It's a weird, offbeat kind of, like you said, a Vic Reeves character. It's utterly bizarre, and we're all in. I think Tom Thrower wanted us to discuss Glovegate. I think we're just all massively in favour of it.
Yeah, how can you not be in favour of it? It's all part of the Imbula brand.
Okay, I think we'll leave on a happy note talking about Gianelli and Bula's Twitter brand there. That's everything from the Wizards of Drivel podcast. A huge thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed listening, please spread the word about this podcast. We've had quite a number of listens on the first 2 episodes, but obviously we want more. We want more Stoke fans to be able to listen to this. So if you've enjoyed it, please tweet about it, tell your friends about it, post it somewhere where Stoke fans will see it. Maybe leave a nice review on iTunes if you want. We really appreciate it. We're not in this to become uber famous or to make money off it. We just want as many Stoke fans to listen to it, to engage in the conversation with us. So if you could get the word out about the podcast in any way you can, we'd absolutely love it. Remember, you can listen to us on SoundCloud on 4231stoke.com, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes so you get new podcasts delivered straight to your device as soon as they're released. Keep an eye out for the great stuff currently going up on 4231stoke.com. Jace, what kind of stuff is on there at the moment?
Well, I added a new Best of British blog this week, which looks at a match day sort of squad of 18 British players that Stoke can target this summer, or this week will do. Our guest blogger Chirag Gokal came in and did his player ratings for the season out of 10, which is quite a good read. And David is still working on his Championship manager save, and Sam's finishing off our Stoke 11 draft. So you can check all those out
Exclusive
on 423-1 Stoke.
preview of my final Championship manager instalment. If you want to know if it's going well, I've lost to Margate in a league match. Just an insight into my managerial ability there. Okay, if you want to get in touch with us about anything website or podcast related, you could tweet us at 4231stoke and email us 4231stoke, that's 4231 written out, at gmail.com. Finally, we want to give a massive thank you to Joe Barbieri, who created the podcast artwork for the Wizards of Drivel. We've got a professional looking podcast artwork, even if us three aren't that professional. But it's absolutely brilliant. Urge you all to check out Joe Barbieri on Twitter. He's done a lot of great stuff for Stoke, for Bear Pit TV, and you can buy a load of prints off him. So by all means, go and give him a load of money. Once again, thanks for listening. Please spread the word if you've enjoyed this. Come on, Stoke. Goodbye, Chris.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Jason.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye from me.